Welcome back, and today we are going to be playing out the JF-17, 13.3, rank 8 in the Chinese tech tree. It's a squadron vehicle and it costs about 8,200 golden eagles. Is this thing worth your money? Let's take a little bit of a look at it. I wanted to start off in the test flight here because I want to take a look at the flight model. This is not something that is feasible to do in an actual match because it will get you killed. The plane is highly maneuverable, but a little bit much so. It looks a bit arcadey as we are flying backwards through the air. And once you are in this nose up kind of stall pattern, you can snap roll it. And if you then invert the snap roll, guess what happens? You turn into Tokyo Drift. Or guess Hong Kong Drift in this case. Now, once you get into this stall, into this drift, it is essentially over if you don't recover it quickly. You can recover it if you're in the early stages, but if you try to maintain it like I am right here, you are essentially dead unless you have a lot of altitude. With a lot of altitude, what you can do is cut the burner, cut the throttle, drop your flaps down, drop your air brakes, or deploy your air brakes, and try to straighten out the plane as much as possible. But as you can see, the plane is really fighting me. I'm just trying to roll to the left here, or yaw to the left, and the plane would constantly just kind of have a mind of its own. I am not doing these massive inputs where it pulls to the left suddenly, and then straightens out again. That is not the instructor either, because when we go to full rule controls, it still does it. So this flight model feels like you're on a carousel and you're kind of being pulled by the string on the nose. It makes very little sense. And in terms of the rest of the flight model, when you are looking at it in the actual gameplay perspective, it is not overly fast. It starts redlining at about 1300 km IS on the deck. And that really isn't that fast, especially for 13.3. Most of your games will be mainly against top tier vehicles. Now we're going to speed it up a bit because I'm going to maintain this loop here, or this carousel ride I guess, for a whole ass 4 minutes, and I don't want to bore you too much with it. After a little bit we also go into full real controls, and it doesn't matter. The plane has a mind of its own. As I said, it feels like you're on the carousel, and it really doesn't feel very good. Now when it comes to the missiles, you have the SD-10s, which are just PL-12s essentially. And then we also have the PL-5Es, which I am not completely sure on. I had pretty good success. They are fast off the rails. They kind of feel like PL-5s, but you know, they have IRCCM. Now I'm not sure how wide the cone is. It feels like it's the same as with the Magic 2 and the R73. I cannot really confirm it right now because I haven't really been able to look into the files too much. But this is my guess for now. If it's not the case, what we will do is I will leave a comment, pin it, or put it in the description. But I feel like the RCCM is the gate width one, where it clamps down, very small FOV, and it just kind of ignores flares for the most part. Now the issue is that none of your missiles have a lot of range. The PL-12s are kind of like on the average, maybe even slightly below average side, so they aren't super fantastic, but they do work. They are still active radar homing missiles, and you don't have an HMD for either your IR missiles or your radar, so you really need to work with your TWS, your ACM modes. And overall the radar feels pretty consistent. The ACM luckily is 19 kilometers. Now here the match really starts. I was pushed on the defensive instantly. I shoot off a very high off-board shot. These missiles have more than enough maneuverability for that. Now luckily it actually hits. Was kind of surprised by it. And if you're wondering about the fuel tanks, I carry min fuel with the fuel tanks because the fuel tanks carry like 23 minutes. So if you drop them, you are instantly on minimum fuel, and then you can really leverage that maneuverability. Normally, very early on in the game, I drop them. I started to drop them later and later, but this is actually the second game that I did in this plane. So we shoot off a second missile, we go into a bit of a notch. F-16 tries to notch, but a little bit too slow, a little bit too close, and he isn't able to defeat the missile. And that is going to be kill number 2. Then another guy flies up over us. We switch the ACM box to the TAL box. We lock him up. We don't need HMD that way. And we just launch the PL-12 directly up his asshole. And doing pretty good work. That is going to be kill number 3. And basically every missile that I shoot is going to hit in this match right here. Don't expect this to happen every time. Yes, it was my second match. Doesn't mean it happens very often. After that I didn't get any more of these spectacular YouTube games. Now the rest of the match is in the middle of the map there, but I do want to be vigilant. Still like 2 or 3 guys unspotted, and then I see a guy on the RWR on my right, so we start engaging them. I'm not entirely sure who it is. I saw the mech on for a brief second there, and I felt like, you know, that wasn't a Mirage, but we're gonna lock him up anyway. It's a little bit above the horizon. I want to kind of climb up here a little bit so that he doesn't fly it into the terrain. It's an F-16, and the F-16 Kind of panics, last second, pulls up, Mirage is still on my left, second Mirage shows up. Now we go underneath him, we multipad a little bit, we drop some flares in case it's the Magic 2. It is not, it is probably a Michael. And after the first merge, we slow down a little bit, try to get position. There's a guy behind me again, so I want to kill this dude as quickly as I can. Mirage goes into a bit of a turn, and he's dropping the flares away from me, so that missile is going to have a very easy time pulling into that one. And then another F-16 shows up directly behind us. Now I'm kind of forced to turn in here. I'm going to hemorrhage a lot of speed. You can see how wonky this flight model is. Yes, I can notch him, but if I notch him right there, I am simply going to die because I'm going to be put defensive and I'm going to have him on my 6. Now, he overshoots and he kind of runs away. He's much quicker than us. F-16 or the Mirage in the background manages to crash. And then we get engaged by another F-16. And the issue is that I only have PL-52s at the moment. So I can't really contest this guy in the head-on, otherwise he would have died right there. Now we go a little bit low, we multipad the missile, because again I don't want to notch at this close of a range. Take a look at the other F-16. Now here, exact same story, he kind of pulls in, he's deploying the flares away from the missile, and that means that he is simply going to die. And that is going to be kill number 6. Now there's only 2 guys left, one of them is nowhere to be seen, I don't really know where he is, but there is an F-16 directly in front of us, so we are going to be engaging him first thing. He shoots a missile at us, we're not getting locked, no smoke trail, that is an AIM-9M, we flare it, we go under him, we pitch up into him, we only have 2 minutes of fuel here, we are vastly more maneuverable than an F-16 and he needs to play energy, he doesn't, he tries to kind of slow down and because of that we just instantly cut inside of him and turn his plane into spare parts and that's the F-16 C down. And then we go back to the runway with our 2 seconds of fuel, we pop a blind hunt to see where the other guy might be. Unfortunately, it actually goes on the guy I just set on fire. I didn't wait for him to die, but then it switches on over and the F-15 is on the other side of the map on the runway, although he is taking off right now. So we are going to try to leg it back to the airfield without the afterburner. Now it might seem like that is counterintuitive, but this will stretch our fuel a little bit longer, it's a little bit more fuel efficient, so it might actually be a little bit quicker. Now we are going to land on the auxiliary airfield. I could have gone for the main airfield, but the issue is if I do that, then I'm never going to be able to take off again. Now we managed to take off with like 12 kilometers to spare. We go into a slight notch, and all of his MRAMs kind of splash me, but none of them really damage me. But my SD-10s find their mark. We shot him the second we took off. I didn't record the early portion of it, but that is the second game, 8 kills, pretty happy with that one. And now let's take a look at some smaller engagements that are a little bit more repeatable, opposed to the absolute shitfest that this match was right here. So the main issue with this plane is the speed bleed and the top speed. This is a combination that kind of makes you slow at all times, and if you are slow at all times you kind of become easy pickings and you really need to pick your targets carefully. You cannot really go into those 1v6s. I mean, most planes can't, but this plane really just kills all of its speed too quickly to be able to juggle multiple balls at the same time. Now here we are on the deck, we shoot a missile off at the guy in orbit that is notching the rest of my team, and because I climb to the left, he basically flies directly into me. Now I feel like I'm not very confident at notching at that angle. It's very hard to tell where the missile is coming from exactly. So instead I just kind of go cold, dive into the terrain, and when you have ample speed, ample distance, that is something that you can do. However, when you are at closer ranges, just like right here, that is not really gonna help you out all too much. Now we are on the ACM box, we make it as big as possible so it's easier to pick him up. We pick him up for a split second, and then we turn it back off again. I know where he is now, I don't need a constant lock. I'm just gonna keep myself updated here and there, but then I notice he's turning in. So what we do is we shoot a missile straight up, then we dive into the terrain and we don't really go into a notch. We simply block the missile and we push onto the attack. Now the F-15 is notching, and notching at closer ranges, especially when you go slightly cold, it's just gonna give me such a good position that I now basically have this guy by the balls unless he runs back to the runway or simply just runs away forever, because he does have more fuel than me. He takes a fight, and again, he is turning in. He doesn't even drop flares, but even if he did, he is dropping the flares away from the missile, and with the gateway missiles, as you might know from my ILCCM video, that is not gonna do you any good. Now here's another example of kind of how I navigate the match in this thing. It is a bit of a finicky plane. I do think it's unique, but I feel like this flight model is going to get updated. So I kind of want to just kind of, you know, not give a hard verdict just yet. If the flight model changes, or if I was wrong about the gateway missile thing, as I said earlier, I will link it in the description or in the comment section, so you at least know that the video isn't up to date anymore. But as of right now, and this is what you're getting. Now most of you will probably not get it until like a few weeks or months from now, because Squadron RP is incredibly slow, which is also a reason why I decided to cover this thing first. Now here we are behind the Su-27, and I didn't feel like actually shooting the SD-10s off, because I wondered about the range on these missiles. That's like 2.5, 2.6, hits them quite easily actually. The range on these missiles is pretty good. I haven't really tested it, but they feel very consistent. They are a little bit wonky off the rail. They don't have any thrust vectoring, of course. So at closer ranges, they are a little bit finicky, but after like 800 to a kilometer, they are very good. They are very fast. They accelerate very quickly. They kind of feel like Magic 2s without the instantaneous pull of the rail. And as you might know, those missiles are pretty solid. And then lastly, of course, we have the gun, GSH-23, nothing really to write home about. We all know this gun. It's a bit of a water pistol, but you know, it gets the job done. You have 6 missiles that are all pretty decent. So overall, I think that the verdict on this plane is, it's kind of okay, I guess. It's not fantastic, it's not broken. It's kind of gimmicky, it's definitely unique. So I think that this is one of those planes that I'm very happy about, that it's not a premium. Also because, well, you know, they said they were never gonna add top tier premiums, but here we are with the non-quote of quote top tier squadron vehicle. Maybe we shoot a missile off. He is over the mountain, we are in the mountain, and we are going to get the freest kill of the century. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you all for watching, hope you enjoyed it, and you will see me out tomorrow with most likely the J10 video.